este evento.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this webinar. I want to welcome John DeBrule and Jean Martin, who are immigration attorneys in our community, really great friends of Unidos Now, of the Latino community. They have an outstanding record helping families with their immigration issues, but also they are the people that we go to when we have any doubts or any questions. So thank you so very much to both of you, John and Jim, for making the time to be with us this evening. And we're going to start with John, who will be talking about what is DACA, and then Jim will follow. So John, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Liz, and thanks for having me and Jim and everyone here. So we're going to start off some very exciting news, which I think probably everybody has caught wind of, that a judge, a federal judge, recently ordered the Department of Homeland Security, basically immigration, to restore many of the rights under DACA. By the way, let me just make sure I don't have to pause for translation.
No.
Okay.
You can just go ahead.
Okay. All right. So as many of the people probably know, the DACA program still exists for people that are already signed up. What is new is that this judge said that immigration, Department of Homeland Security, basically now has to accept new applications. And I believe, I don't know the exact figure, but I believe that there's something like over 100,000 people who are eligible for DACA in the country that have not signed up. So no doubt there's a lot of people in the community that fall into this. I know Jim and I have both already gotten a lot of calls about new applications. So the second thing that's very important about what the judge did is he allowed for advanced parole requests to be made. I know I have a few clients who are going through the consular processing right now, that because they never left the country under an advanced parole and came back into the country, so that marrying a citizen would allow them to get their green card here. So some of the people in the community who already have DACA are going to be able to take advantage of this very important right to be able to ask for permission to leave the country and return, allowing you to have a lawful entry, which allows you to be able to be petitioned by your spouse or another immediate relative, like a parent. So that's really important. Also, I just want to stress that you cannot, if you're on DACA, you can't leave the country without advanced parole, because if you did, then you would lose your DACA status and you would not be able to come back for either 3 or 10 years, depending upon the situation. Okay, so the third thing that the judge did was allowed people who are applying, who are already on deferred action or who are new applicants, to get 2-year cards instead of what they're getting now, 1-year cards. So all this is very exciting. I kind of think of it in myself as kind of a precursor to some of the good things we're hoping will happen with immigration under the new administration, which will come into effect starting on Inauguration Day, January 20th. Okay, so let's talk about who is eligible, who can apply. So first off, you have to have entered the country before your 16th birthday. So you know, I've had people over the years. I had one person that that entered at 16 and, you know, came to us, and every other way would have been eligible, but unfortunately did not meet that requirement. So you have to have entered the country before your 16th birthday. If you can see the slide that we're showing, you have to have been born after June 15th, 1981. That just basically saying what age you would have been to be able to qualify. You have to have been this is the big one that I think. You have to have been continuously residing in the United States since June 15th, 2007, up to the present time. So you have to have come into the country before you were 16, before June 16th, 2007, and have continuously lived here up until now. Another requirement is that you have been present in the United States on June 15th, 2012. It kind of goes without saying, I suppose, if you continuously resided here, but you know, there are some exceptions for people who left the country prior to that 2012 and returned into the country. So you have to have been present on that date. And then you have to have either graduated from high school, currently are in high school or in school, or obtained a GED, or participated in the military. And then one of the final things that we'll talk about, and I think that Jim will go into in more detail. If you've committed certain crimes, you may not be eligible to apply. So that's the basic requirements. Like anything else, proving it is going to be the hardest part of the application, assuming you're eligible already. And one of the situations that people who are thinking about doing this can start involving themselves right now is to gather the evidence that they have been continuously here since 2007. So what are some of the things that we recommend? School records, of course. School records. You know, if you have been in school since 2007 to graduation, that's going to be very helpful for that chunk of time. For people who are older, work records, things like leases, tax returns, medical is something that's very helpful for everybody. The person that just came in today had their shot records from when they were a baby, so that's going to be helpful. And there are a variety of other things. that you can use depending upon the situation. But they're very strict about proof. You know, you can't just have like a single piece of evidence saying that this was my address on a certain date for a year. They really want a lot more than that. So also, of course, basic identity, such as your passport or birth certificate to show who you are. Um, so that's basically the general outline of qualifications. How do we want to handle it now? Do we want to answer some of the questions that are there, or should we talk about Jim talking about some of the more difficult criminal situations that may arise? How do you want to handle it?
If you want, John, I think we can go into some of the factors that would cause a person not to qualify.
Yeah.
And maybe you and I can talk a little bit about some of these finer points of these criteria, because the way this is listed, it is pretty simplified, and I think that this is appropriate for the setting that we're in. So one thing that comes to mind, and give your opinion on this, but my understanding is that you were living in the United States on June 15th, 2012, and then they go back to this June 15th, 2007. You had to have been here since June 15th, 2007. My understanding is that you had to have been in an unlawful status on June 15th, 2007. So if you're one of these unlucky people who happened to come in on a tourist visa on June 13th, 2007, and you didn't expire for 6 months, my understanding is that you would not qualify. So this is why it's a good idea to speak to an attorney, because you don't want to be throwing in an application and not qualifying. I don't mean to scare anybody. I really have not seen it in the years. What is it? We're on 12 years or 8 years of DACA now. I have not seen anybody really get a notice to appear based upon a DACA application, but it's probably, if you go through what all the attorneys are saying, that probably has happened. But it is not normally a practice, but you don't want to be putting in a DACA application that you don't qualify for. Okay. And then on this June 15th, 2012, you really want to kind of put a little bit of emphasis on these dates here, this June 15th, 2012 and June 7th, June 15th, 2007. You really kind of, around those dates, you kind of want to enhance your documentation, make sure that you have something close to those dates if you can in the file, because they do tend to get a little nitpicky about that stuff. Sometimes they'll overlook it, sometimes they won't. And so you just want to make sure that if you're honing in on some of these key dates, those are a couple of key dates that you want to be able to have maybe some documentation that is close to those dates that will show your presence on those two key dates. The other thing that I would say is on the educational requirement, it's actually kind of a neat program, because for those dreamers who really did not complete their education, it incentivizes completing the education. And so if you didn't finish your high school diploma, you can enroll in a GED program or an ESL program and meet the requirement for a DACA. So, I mean, I hate to say this publicly, I have clients, it's really terrible. They'll like re-enroll in GED like after the 2 years and just keep doing that. I don't want to encourage anybody to do that, because I think one of these days they're going to get denied, and we always kind of roll our eyes. But as long as you're making a good faith effort to complete out your high school diploma, even if you're 25 years old, you can qualify for DACA, and we have had success with that. Now, John and I discussed earlier that I was going to speak about the crimes. It's very, very important that you have as clean a record as you possibly can, because there are certain things that can disqualify you. And some of the things that can disqualify you are 3 misdemeanors or 1 felony. And then, or if you have a serious misdemeanor. So anything drug related, even if it's a misdemeanor, is probably going to just knock you out of the box. And other misdemeanors could be like domestic violence, um, things like that will definitely knock you out of the box from being qualified. So the big one is DUI. You get a DUI, you're not going to get DACA. Okay. The government doesn't want to go on record as having assisted somebody with a DUI in getting deferred status, because if they go out and kill somebody else, it's only somebody else driving drunk. They don't want that type of activity associated with the program. And I have had some clients who have greatly, greatly complicated their lives through a bad decision to drink and drive. So really, compliance with the law is super, super important because maybe you'll get the DACA if you don't have the DUI, but if you get the DUI during the time that you have a DACA, when you come to renew it, they're not going to renew that DACA, and then you've got a problem. So those are really, I mean, I do have to emphasize, however, that minor traffic infractions will not result in you being disqualified for a DACA. So if you drove without a license, that's not going to disqualify you. It gets a little bit more into the gray area if you've driven without a license 5 or 10 times and they charge you with a felony or something like that. I really haven't seen that in the 8 years of the DACA program, but I think it's conceivably possible that could happen, and then you may have a felony. So the key is to be very compliant with the law, be cognizant that this is a discretionary program. We use the word right because it is in some ways a right, but legally it is not a right. It is a discretionary program that they can deny people on. And so, like, if you have a DUI, there's just no appeal. If you were to try to renew and you have a DUI, there's just no appeal. These are really bright line tests that are very clear in the criteria, and you don't really have much of a choice but to comply. What are your thoughts on that, John? Do you have anything to add?
No, I've had a lot of clients that have had misdemeanor situations with driving without a license. And I did have one that unfortunately violated probation on the second one, and they counted that as a third misdemeanor basically, and they denied. So I mean, they have discretion, on these situations. It's not cut and dry all the time. I mean, if they have a feeling that you basically don't qualify because of good moral character, they will deny. So it's a real concern.
Now, I think we need to clarify, because when we're talking about crimes, if it's a juvenile offense under the Immigration and Nationality Act, that is not considered to be a crime, and normally those will not be disqualifying convictions, because technically if you're charged and convicted, quote unquote, as a juvenile, that is not really a conviction for a crime. I have had some serious juvenile misconduct where I think it's even involved drugs, and it was done as juvenile, and they have gotten their DACA. So I think it's really, really important. And one was, I think, possession of a firearm. But I think it's really, really important that when you're dealing with criminal activity, you need to be extraordinarily careful in presenting a DACA application. And you really need to be speaking to a legal professional. And the reason for that is we're able, and we do it with difficulty. It's many times, I mean, some of these are bright line rules, which are obvious for attorneys, but there's a level of ambiguity when it comes to crimes that really you don't want someone who is not trained in the law making the call on whether to file the DACA or not. I would be scared to death, honestly, if I had someone, I would never file this, but I would be scared to death for this person if someone as an adult had something like a drug conviction, a cocaine possession conviction, and some nimwit goes ahead and files that. That is a case where I could see an NTA, notice to appear, invitation to appear before an immigration judge for a removal proceeding possibly taking place, because that would be a trigger for the service saying this is a person who has committed a crime that is clearly a removable offense. And so you don't want to just be putting things in, especially if there has been a crime that has been committed of that nature. So it's best to go through a legal professional.
Yeah, Jim, I want to echo that, there are people out there that will tell you that, you don't have to spend money on an attorney, that they can complete the application for you, but that's always a dangerous road to take. And we both have seen people come to us after something has been gone terribly wrong from making that choice. I want to mention something that we haven't touched on yet, and that is that even if you have an order of deportation, that you can apply for DACA. So
that is an excellent point, John, and I'm glad that you brought that up. DACA is essentially a protection against the government taking action against a person. So in its name is a description, deferred action, acción diferida. So the government is basically saying, we know you are here unlawfully, but because you are not an enforcement priority, and because you came here as a young kid, I mean, we really don't want to go after you. We are going to say we're setting aside your type of case. And in the meantime, since we're doing that, we're giving you a work authorization. John, today when we were discussing this, it was clear that the advanced parole is back into play. And I can comment on it, but I'd like you to tell me, or to really bring that point out and how big that is for our clients. Because, I'm sure John, when he read this, was doing a dance. I was doing a dance. And we just want to really, really drive this point home, because this is very, very important for DACA recipients. So why don't you kind of go over the unlawful presence thing, how going out on an advanced parole and coming back in gets you inspected, and what that means for these clients, and in a practical way, John.
okay. So why we're so happy about the advanced parole is that in the happy occurrence that somebody who is on DACA but entered the country without a visa, or another way lawfully, marries a citizen, then currently they have to go through basically a two-step process. And that is, the first step, the spouse would file a petition for the DACA recipient. And once it's approved, they would have to make arrangements to go out of the country to their home country and go to a consular interview. Now, in 90% of the cases, there's no problem, but in 10% of the cases, there's something that we don't know about. You know, something comes up and prevents that person from coming right back. So that obviously is an unhappy occurrence for everybody. So now that we have advanced parole, even if you are not married currently, if you entered unlawfully with this advanced parole, you can go out of the country and enter again lawfully, so that should the case come up where, you know, your spouse is going to file a petition for you, you won't have to leave the country again. So it's huge. It's a huge benefit to people. And we can talk a little bit about how that process works. There's a form that you have to complete. And you have to basically say why you're going out of the country. Most of our clients that do this have a relative that may have a health issue, or we just had an advanced parole where a person's father died and wanted to go memorialize his father. In any case, as long as it's a fairly reasonable request, you know, not like I've always wanted to see Paris in the moonlight, something like that. That's not going to work. But you know, something usually family related, then it'll be approved. So once you come back in, you have a lawful admission. Now, if you didn't do that, if you left the country without advanced parole, you not only would lose your DACA, but you would, because you had been in the country without what they call lawful presence, basically, you know, you're not in your tourist status or some other lawful presence, then you would trigger what we call a bar. So if you're been in the country in that situation for over a year, you can't go back for 10 years. And if you're out of status for over 180 days, then it's 3 years. So obviously, this is really bad. You never want to put yourself in a situation like that. You never want to leave the country, DACA or not, while you're out of status, because you're going to be facing this horrible situation. So
we have some questions in the chat, and one of them is about what evidence can you present to show that you were present in the US on June 15, 2012, since this date was during the summer and most students won't have any evidence to show they were present in the US?
I'll take that one. Look, I think maybe I made it sound a little bit more difficult than it is. Usually, if you have transcripts for all of 2012, so you have this spring semester and then the fall semester, you're probably going to be okay on that. This issue will arise when someone had already graduated by that date. And so it's kind of, I mean, the examiners, think of the examiners. The examiners are a lot like us. They're just looking to make sure that we've met our criteria. And so they're not stupid. They know that they're not all stupid, but they know that if someone was in the spring semester and then the fall semester of 2012 and same thing for 2007, they're going to know that they were there, that they didn't go out of the country. The problem arises when you have people who like have already graduated, and they get a little picky on the physical presence because now they're out of school. They don't have something that has them really tied into someplace. And you're not going to really, I mean, unless you strike gold, you're not really going to be super lucky and get that rent receipt that says June 15th. Okay. So you just try to present as much stuff kind of before and after, as close to that date as you possibly can. And I have found that that has satisfied the examiners. So please don't let that date throw you off. And if you say, well, I don't really have anything around that date, just speak to your attorney about it, because there are workarounds for that. And we can argue with the service over it. And like I say, maybe I made it seem a little bigger than it was. It's not a huge deal, but you do try to get something close to those dates if you can submit it.
So there is another question. I have a son who is in 4th grade. Can he apply, and how? I think you've explained who is eligible, but maybe just to reinforce that, there is a criteria, and probably a 4th grader won't qualify to apply for DACA right now. Correct?
Well, I don't think it has anything to do with what grade you're in. It just all goes back to the date. You had to have been here on June 15th, 2007. So if there
John,
was,
they weren't accepting until the kid turned 15. So I don't know if that changed. You couldn't apply unless the kid had turned 15. That's why some people.
oh, I see.
And so,
I didn't do
first
the,
of all, if they're in the cuarta de primaria, they would be like, how old would they be? They'd be like 10.
Right.
Okay, so they wouldn't have met the first criteria to begin with, because they wouldn't have been here in 2007.
yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of mooted itself out. So no, you can't do that. They have to have been here out of status on June 15th, 2007, so that they clearly would not qualify. And I have not read this, but the deal was that they were only taking DACA applications for kids who had turned 15. And I don't see any changes in that coming down the road. So I just don't think it's going to happen for a 4th grader.
Thank you. There is a question also about, my daughter renewed DACA in October and her permit came for only 1 year. Will the government extend her DACA for 2 years like they normally did, or do we have to reapply?
Well,
John?
currently it hasn't been extended automatically. So when she does reapply and it's approved, she'll get it for 2 years.
Thank you.
I just don't recall. I don't know if they said that they were going to make them go back, if that was part of the court order. Did you read anything like that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So
Well, let me look.
let me see if we have something here. I thought I had read something that maybe they were going to do that. Hold on 1 second.
No, I'm sorry. It does say that. You're right.
Yeah, so they'll fix it for them.
Okay. Someone from Facebook. Under the new administration in January, could DACA become a path to citizenship for these young people?
John, you want to just start that one?
Not under the current law.
Yeah. I'm going to say, look, if you want to know if there's a possibility of things changing, you'll probably know better on January 6th than you will
Oh,
today. In a couple of things have to happen, and it's a real tough thing to know what will happen. But look, Biden has won the presidency. Hallelujah, hallelujah, praise you, Jesus. I mean, if he had not won the presidency, we would really, really be super depressed right now, only because Trump has conducted a war on immigrants in the last 4 years, and it was only going to get worse. However, the Democrats underperformed in the elections because the country is very, very divided. We are a conservative country, I have come to admit. So the Democrats lost seats in the House, but have remained in control of the House of Representatives. The Senate is a toss-up right now, and there are 2 seats in Georgia, and 1 seat had been vacated. So normally a state only votes on 1 senator in an election cycle, but this is a strange election cycle, and Georgia has to vote on 2. And the Democrats have to win both of those Senate seats to get a majority in the Senate, and it would only be a majority that would be a tiebreaker majority, which means that the vice president, who is the president of the Senate, would have to be sitting there and break the ties in the votes. So right now, if the Democrats win both of those seats, there is a reasonable possibility that there will be positive changes in the immigration law. But understand, please, the politics of this. This is a very narrow majority. And the Democrats are going to have to do some things that I think that they are willing to do. And one of them would be to eliminate the filibuster in the Senate. Basically, they have a rule in the Senate that for a debate to close on any bill, you have to have 60 senators who are willing to close the debate on the bill, or the bill will fail. Okay? And that is why Obama didn't get immigration, wasn't able to get one of the reasons he wasn't able to get immigration reform through back in 2009. And so what would have to happen is there would have to be an elimination of this rule, so you don't have to have 60 votes to close out on a bill. And basically the Democrats would have to have a very strong coalition and be able to push things through. Unfortunately, Democrats don't walk lockstep like the Republicans do. And so you could have some Democrats defecting over to the Republican side, but you also, in a weird situation, you could actually have some Republicans defecting over to the Democratic side. You have the senator from Maine who is more liberal. You have people like Mitt Romney who may be willing to make a deal. So, stay tuned. Get your popcorn out, because we just have no idea. But I will tell you, if those seats are not won by Democrats, and you'll know like probably January 6th or shortly thereafter, don't expect too many changes. What you will see is a change in the tone of enforcement, and Biden trying to do everything administratively he can, but his hands will probably be tied legislatively.
Thank you so much, Jim. There is a question about what are the basic documents required for an undocumented student? I assume that this is the question about to apply for DACA.
Well, I think we talked a little bit about that. I mean, first, the most basic requirement is to establish your identity. So you either need a birth certificate or a passport, hopefully both, to start off showing that you are who you say you are, and you come from where you say you came from. And then secondly, we have to meet all the other requirements that shows that you came to this country before you were 16. And that was before June 15th, 2007. And that you've been continuously present in the United States since then. If you can gather all those, I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting, but that's basic. That's the basic requirement to put together the application.
Thank you so much. There is a question from a parent. My son has a disability. Can he apply for DACA as well? Shall we assume that her son is in the age range?
Yeah. First of all, I think that, first of all, yes, the answer to that is absolutely yes. Okay, there's nothing in the rule that says like if you have a disability, you cannot apply. And so I would say absolutely yes. If your son has a disability, there may actually be some, I was thinking of another rule under the law, but the son is not a US citizen. If you have a US citizen child with a disability, you may have some other possibilities. But as your son would be undocumented, yeah, he should be able to apply just like anybody else and qualify. I don't see any reason why he would not.
Well, what she may be, I mean, I'm not sure if this is possible, but if the person had such a severe disability that they weren't even participating in education, that could
Yeah, that's
be
possible,
an
John.
issue, which I think would be subject to litigation, I would argue, but
Or just keep him going to school.
yeah,
I mean, I have eternal students.
right, right.
I think there is one question also from someone says, I've been here for 14 years, but I never went to school. I don't know if this person is confusing that you have to be 14, when you were in the United States or before 14 to be able to apply for DACA, but not necessarily that you have to be 14 years here. Oh no, she says that she was 15 years old.
He didn't go to school.
And didn't go to school at all.
That's Jim's comment.
Yeah, I think you could enroll in ESL and qualifying ESL going towards a high school diploma. And I think you can qualify. Yes.
Yeah.
Can she qualify if she starts the ESL program now, knowing that she has already missed?
That's the way the program was before, and I don't see it as changing. We've had a number of people in ESL.
Okay, so Marisela, the answer is yes. You need to get on with your ESL program. So Jim, I think you still have a presentation to go through. So I think this is a good time if you want to use your slides and continue on, and then we'll see the questions coming up in the chat or the question and answer.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, we kind of went through what I had to say, but I do have another slide. Why don't we just go through that slide real quick? It's going to reiterate some of the stuff that we were saying before, but it's good to reinforce it anyway. So let's just pull that up. And let me do a screen share. Hopefully this will go smoothly. Yeah, that works. Okay, and it's written. So these are just some things. And obviously the whole objective of this webinar is we know DACA is back. Okay, so and what's really cool about it is our illustrious president, since he was so smart and appointed someone illegal, this whole thing turns on a legal technicality. And because the president is so smart, he illegally appointed someone to direct DHS for these issues. And that's how this thing all got knocked out. Because if his appointment, the person he appointed was not legally appointed, then everything that they did was not a legal action. and that's what knocked it out. So you break the rules, I guess you pay. So DACA is back. And let's reiterate these points. If you never had DACA and are eligible, you can apply for the first time. Okay, we were talking about this. Advanced parole. You can, if you have a family emergency, and then I think, John, there's another one is for educational purposes. Some of these students actually
Right.
went to study abroad,
Mhm.
and so they were allowed to do an advanced parole.
Right.
Now, as I think about the advanced parole, I would like to point something out. If you get an advanced parole, write in your memory, write it on your hand, write it on your iPhone, the expiration date of that advanced parole. Because if you try to come back in on that advanced parole 1 day after it is expired, you are out of luck and you will be stuck outside of the United States. This is why you really want to work with a professional, because that is very, very important. We were talking about having an automatic renewal of their DACA. Will automatically have their 1 year work authorization. It will be extended to a 2-year work authorization. Again, when our illustrious president broke the rules, he now has to pay and fix what he broke, which is very good. Let me see. I mean, I'm just reading this off. You can read it as well. In fact, Luce, if you want to send this out, there's a Spanish version below. But the judge's order is immediate. And just be careful about how you do it. But we expect a counterpunch from the Trump administration. This guy is like Don Corleone of The Godfather running this country. So, and everything is a vendetta. And I just don't bite my tongue. That's the way it is. So we think that he may try to undo this beforehand, but we also know that we have a pro-immigrant president coming in. So I'm reasonably optimistic that it's going to stand. I could be wrong, but this particular flyer talks about this issue falling before Judge Hannon on December 22nd. There's another lawsuit trying to get rid of DACA. Okay, Judge Hannon is the one who knocked out DAPA, which was supposed to be the deferred action for the parents of childhood arrivals. So there are some clouds on the horizon. It does not appear to be totally clear cut. But look, when I was talking about the fact that we needed to have the Democrats win those 2 Senate seats in Georgia in order for there to be significant changes, I do want to be ever the optimist, and I do believe that there is a political will to help out the Dreamers. So I believe that there are good things for the Dreamers in the future. There may even, I mean, it's possible. I don't know how you feel about this, John. It is possible that even if the Democrats don't take the Senate, that there may be some sort of legislation just to get this problem solved and offering a path to citizenship. But it's like having a crystal ball. We just don't know. And we don't even know what's going to happen on December 22nd. I don't think that is going to derail DACA, but it could. And we live in such an unstable time politically in this country that, the unthinkable happened in 2016. Nobody thought Trump was going to win. Everybody thought he was going to lose because this country just does not elect clowns, and we elected a clown. So expect the unexpected. It can be good, it can be bad. We just have to take it as it goes along. And that's my portion of what I have to say.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. There is a question about if a college student that has a DACA college student, can she switch to another university outside of the United States? College student who is DACA attending a USA university, can she switch to a university outside of the United States? And I guess the question is, what would it mean for her DACA status?
I believe that they can. If it's talking about an exchange. So when they're saying intercambio, I see that as an
Yeah.
exchange program.
Mhm.
So yes, they can. They would have to. It would be for an educational purpose. I don't know exactly how long they would issue the advanced parole for, but conceivably they would take into consideration the amount of time that the person needs to be out. I mean, I wouldn't suggest going out for 3 years, but a lot of these 1 year or one semester study abroad type things seem to be the type of thing that is envisioned by that part of the advanced parole. The good thing about it is that we're talking about exchange programs in a time of COVID. So probably any exchange program is going to be a year out anyway, because it's almost like the elite are traveling out of the country at this point in time because hardly anybody's traveling. So you just need to watch the situation as it develops. But I would say probably that will work, but do consult a professional about it before doing it. And maybe try to arrange it so that you're not spending all the money on the foreign program before you know that you're going to get the advanced parole. And that may be harder to do because a lot of these programs want their money up front. The government's not particularly amenable to issuing documents on our time frame. They do it whenever they want to. So
Yeah.
And a question that is related to traveling. Can someone travel to other places like Puerto Rico or Hawaii, or the person should not leave the United States?
As long as they have DACA, they can travel to any one of our states or protectorates, commonwealths, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands, American Samoa, all these places. They can go far and wide as long as they stay within the United States.
Thank you, John. Just for everybody, Cindy has posted the slides in the Google Drive. She has typed the link in the chat room. So if you want to click on the link and want to see the information that our attorneys have presented, you can easily access that information. There is another question about, is there any risk applying to DACA? Could my family be at risk to be sent home?
That's an excellent question because I think a lot of people who could have applied maybe haven't applied because they are worried about endangering their family. So certainly under Trump, we could never say never, but we've never seen a situation where they use the DACA application to identify family members who might have been out of status. So as it stands right now, there's absolutely no risk to family members for applying this DACA.
I agree 100%.
Great, thank you. There is something else. Yes, my daughter she is 15 years old and she came to the USA 6 years ago. Can she apply for DACA?
No, because she wasn't here on June 15th, 2007. So on that handout, that first handout, you have to meet all of the criteria. So if you're missing one of them, you're just not gonna, it's not gonna work.
We also going to email to all the attendees that have registered for the webinar, the information. And those who didn't, just make sure that you type your email address so that you can get those documents on your inbox.
Can I say
Yes.
one other thing? It does, there is a filing fee. It's currently $495 to file. Jim, do you remember, can you do fee waiver for this or not?
I don't think it's qualifiable.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's no fee waiver for this. So you have to pay the $495.
So just to make sure that we all understand, DACA application has a cost. And
Yes,
it's 495 just to file the application.
yes.
Okay. So there are some people that probably won't be able to have that fee. And one of the earlier questions that we had from some of the parents was, where can I go if I don't have the financial means to file an application? Are you aware of any organizations or institutions that may provide assistance with those filing fees?
I am not. And that's when I would turn to Unidos now. I mean, are you guys aware of anything? What have you heard, Luz?
So basically, there is only one institution, no, I'm sorry, it's not. They have sent some information that they are providing very reduced interest rates loans to people who are applying for citizenship, for DACA, or anything that has to do with their
Right.
immigration status adjustment. It's the only organization that I know who is focused on trying to assist immigrants. So if there is anyone who's interested, they should leave the information. We will be happy to connect them with that organization. I'm not allowed to make the case for anybody. So I'm not at liberty of saying, oh yes, this organization, but we can connect them so that they can find out if there is some assistance there. But you are making it very clear that there is no waiver, which I think it's
Right.
what many people are implying. It has to be paid.
And that's really unfortunate that there aren't funds there, because right now, and we know that the immigrant community tends to get the short end of the stick. It's kind of like last in and first out. The economy is just, because of COVID and all of the craziness going on, the economy is just not doing well and people are suffering. It's very sad, but I think that is going to be something where it's going to be hard to come by people who are going to be fronting those fees for other people, because they resources are severely limited right now. The only thing that I would say about it is it's probably worth the investment for the 495, because it opens up the possibility of making a lot more money if the person can work with a work authorization, and they can get a better salary. So I know that that's not really much comfort, but it's about the only thing that I can say about it.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage those who are on the webinar with us to get in touch with us. We'll make sure that we inquire around and see if there is anyone who may be willing to sponsor. Because there are some people who usually, if you explain the situation, they may be willing to sponsor maybe a part of the fee, not everything. And also, yeah, we'll see if we can assist in some way. There is one question here from Don Carlos. They denied DACA to a person after approving it 3 times based on 2 arrests for driving without a license. That happened before he applied the first time. Should he apply again under the new administration?
I would apply again. If those are the straight facts, that doesn't even look like a basis for a denial in the first place. That looks like minor traffic. The only thing is you need to look at that because sometimes if you get hit driving without a license a number of times, they can escalate that to a felony. And I think that that would probably knock you out. I mean, because I think maybe the third or fourth time, and it's I believe it's at the discretion of the state whether they charge it as a felony. So I don't know enough facts about that case. And I think what you should probably do is have the person get all of the records and come to see an attorney about that because that just on its face it just doesn't look right, but there may have been like a felony conviction in there for just multiple times of driving without a license, but I don't know, doesn't look right.
Thank you, Jim. There is something that I've heard from families. They want to understand what is the whole process. You know, once they start with the application, they pay the fee, they provide all the documentation. Can you walk us through the steps that the DACA application would take and maybe like a approximate time frame?
Well, the unfortunate thing about immigration right now is that there's no set time frames for these applications. We have had DACA applications that were approved in 2 months, and we've had them approved in 8 or 9 months. So, but basically, from the time that you would enter your attorney's office, to filing would all depend upon how quickly you can gather all the evidence to meet all the requirements, specifically showing that you were here during those time periods. If you have all that evidence and you have it together before you even go to the attorney's office, then it shouldn't take very long to put together the application. Once it's filed, in about a month, lately it's been longer, 6 weeks even, or even 8 weeks, you'll get a receipt. Then the next step will be that they will send you a notice to go to Tampa to have your fingerprints taken. Basically what they're doing is they're checking to see if you have any criminal matters in your background that you haven't disclosed, or even other things such as an order of deportation could be shown by the fingerprints. So you won't get approved until you've done that. So after the fingerprints are approved, it'll go back to the adjudication office, and then they, it depends on how high their pile is before they get to your case. And then hopefully if everything looks good, there's no question, you'll get it within, a short period of time to, as I say, 2 to 4 months, possibly even sooner. But under COVID, I mean, everything's slowed down as well anyway.
A question about people who didn't go to school all these years, but now they have a chance. Does it have to be a program approved by an accredited organization, like they say MTC, Polytech, or can they do this through an English program at the Literacy Council or Project Light, one of those?
My understanding on that is it has to be kind of an accredited type official program. And so it's not, you can't just go to a community program and say, I'm learning English. These exist out there. My understanding is like, if you're doing ESL, it has to be leading towards getting a level of fluency in English so that you can pursue a high school diploma. I would not feel comfortable at all putting anything lesser in. And I even the ESL stuff, sometimes I feel like it's almost too good to be true. And I feel I put it in and I'm like, they're really going to approve this, and then they come back and and they
Hmm.
approve it, but it is an official like MTC, type program. And so that's very important. And the other thing is, I have seen, and you just have to be really careful at the beginning. I haven't seen this in recent years because all we've been doing is renewals. But some people will get into these programs that say, we're giving you a high school diploma or whatever, and it's Christian Ministries International. They're doing some stuff on the internet. And then I've seen the service come back and say, look, this is not accredited. And they're like, we're not going with this. So yeah, you're best off just working through the county schools and stuff in an official program, uh, and just avoiding that issue completely, so you don't have the disappointment of losing the fees and the time and paying some program of dubious worth and merit money when you have the resources here through the county.
Yeah, and just to follow up on what you're saying, Jim, I think while it's true that you would qualify if you're in an ESL program, if you had yet to get a GED or something at renewal, then you'd either have to still be in school or obtain a high school diploma.
Yeah, and that has been an issue. I've got these perennial students that will bring, it's terrible. I don't really want to say this on a public forum, but they'll bring me the program. I've done 3 or 4 extensions. It seems like they come to Jesus at the last minute and go into this program like just for the renewal, and then lo and behold, the approval comes through, and darn, life happens, and they drop out of the program, and then two years later, oh, my EAD is going to expire, and they come to Jesus again, and they go to the program, and look, we file it with a lot of warnings for these guys, like you are playing with fire.
Hmm.
And so I don't like that. I am an advocate, so I'll file it with a good warning to the client that this may not work. I'm knocking on wood right now. It has worked in the past. I'm probably about as pro-client as they can come, and so is John. But if I were an examiner, I would be looking at that and rolling my eyes, okay? And I'd be saying, this person is not taking this seriously. So what I'm saying is just, look, sometimes we complain about the government a lot, okay? But sometimes the government actually does something right and puts a program in place to incentivize people to better themselves. So do it. Do it.
Right. It also goes with improving your chances for better jobs. If someone is really interested in learning the language and you go to a serious program that gives you different levels of expertise, by the time you are done with the program, you are going to have chances to have a better job and maybe pursue a different career as well. So it's a good investment to learn the language. Um, Someone is asking if under the new administration, will parents have access to what we know DAPA? I think you touched upon that earlier, but do you want to get a little bit more into these? Will DAPA have a chance
Yeah,
to
well,
exist again?
the one thing I'll say it in Spanish, ojalá, but I don't believe it's going to happen. The previous administration got shut down under DAPA. Now they could try it again. But I think los republicanos van a hacer la misma M. They're going to do the same thing over again with it. They're gonna run it into the courts, and I think it's going to be a problem. The reason we are in this situation right now is because the government is incapable of implementing a fair, comprehensive, just, and common sense immigration program. The statistics are saying there are 11 million undocumented. They're not going away. Yes, we hear the horror stories of Trump, deporting a bunch of people. In some ways, I think it was worse under the first years of Obama. But look, I don't see DAPA happening again. It would be great because what DAPA really is a backdoor program to legalize the parents of these students, because if they can effectuate a legal entry, then they can adjust status, and it's probably their only path to permanent residency and citizenship, because you cannot do a waiver for a parent through their US citizen kid. So they have unlawful presence. If they leave, they have to stay out 10 years. It's unwaivable through their kid. And so I think the Republicans caught wind of this and they knew it, and they fought it tooth and nail. And I don't expect them to have seen the light because of this last election. If anything, tempers are more inflamed and it's going to be more contentious. Your best bet is we can just only hope and pray that there's some sort of immigration reform.
Thank you so much. I don't know, Lisbeth, if we've covered all the questions that the parents sent before.
Yes, we did, because most of the questions also have an answer many times. They were the same questions.
So I just want to share that I received an email from someone who is watching the program. And basically, this person is saying, we've watched most of the program. For us, it was an excellent learning experience. We learned a lot. And the lawyers were very good. Also, the questions raised were excellent. My only concern, and this may be due to my ignorance, is whether much of the audience would be of faith with the technicalities discussed. In any event, well done. So my question will be for the audience. Para todas las personas que están escuchando, so everyone who is on the webinar, are you having any difficulties with some of the language or the explanation? And if you do, I would encourage you to ask your question right now. We still have like about 15 minutes left, and we can take advantage of our generous attorneys here. So ask your questions or just let us know if you're having any difficulties. Y esto va para toda la audiencia que nos esté escuchando afuera y en este webinar. Si tienen alguna pregunta o no han entendido alguna palabra, este es el momento de poner sus opiniones. They are responding. It says, muchas gracias por ayudar a nuestra comunidad. Su información fue clara. So that's a good sign. ¿Qué más piden para aplicar? I think they mean, what else? Because they ask for so many things, you know, besides the proof of identification and all those requirements to show that the person was here in 2007. What else? Oh, yes, this is a question that somebody asked earlier. Does a church record that somebody has been a member of a church may count to prove that this person was here? If someone has done volunteer work, if someone had been helping with a business, even though they did not get paid or file taxes, you know, what are those other informal ways that would count to justify their presence here?
Well, it's interesting you say that because I have a copy of the instructions before me, and they have a number of areas of suggestions to prove your residence in the United States. And one of them are official records from a religious entity confirming your participation in a religious community, rite or passage such as baptism, first communion or a wedding. So I would imagine that if there was something with a church that said that you were participating, that you were an active member of the church, that would be well received.
I agree. And I'm sure you've seen this too, John. We have some people that have been pretty sparse on their documentation, especially if they come in on, days before their 15th birthday and they never really attended school. I mean, school records are the very best. I say use whatever, get whatever you can, be creative, not creative as in inventive. I mean, the records have to be real. Okay, so don't invent things. We don't want anybody putting anything in that's not real, but be creative. And sometimes you have secondary records. So for example, let's say this person never really went to school, but they had 3 kids and they've been taking those kids to the doctor for the last 10 years. And, even the doctor's office can issue a letter, if they will, saying mom has been taking this kids to school all these, or to the doctor's office all these years. So the way I handle it in the office here is that, I do try to file as many of these things as I can. And I think John does the same thing. If we see people being a little bit sparse, which means poca información, pocos documentos, we'll tell you, look, this looks kind of weak, but if this is the best you can do, we'll file it and, hopefully it will go through. Any legal professional that you are dealing with owes you the truth, and they have to tell you what they're seeing. Now, I've had clients that I'm like, I don't want to file this thing, and they're like, we'll take the risk, file it. And as long as that is clear, I'll file it. And I've had clients that have taught me a lesson or two because they say file it, and lo and behold, it comes back as approved. So we as attorneys are human beings too, and we have our ways of looking at things, but sometimes it's a very imprecise science. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor and they change your medications a few times until they get it right. This is the way attorneys work. I'm just telling you the truth. It's just the way it works. You're counting on us for our expertise, but we have not seen every single set of facts and fact patterns. So you really just want someone who's going to be flexible and real with you and tell you what's going on and what your risks are. That's the best you're going to get. And you want them to know the law and apply the law to your case to the best of their ability. That's the most you can ask of an attorney.
Wonderful.
Another thing I want to mention, because I had a couple of people call about this, that if you have applied in the past, well, I'll just give you the situation. Somebody called and said that they applied on their own. Their sister was helping. And then they got a request to give them more evidence and they didn't do anything. And the case got denied because of that. So that doesn't mean that your possibility of getting approved is gone forever. You can apply again. And maybe if you go to an attorney, they'll help you get the evidence together and do a better job, and you'll be approved this time.
Thank you. There is a question here from someone who never went to school. She was pregnant in 2007, and her child was born in 2008. Does it count? That's the question, I guess, about establishing that she was here.
She never went to school, but I would imagine it depends, when she did arrive. But if it was before that time in 2007, then quite possibly she was getting some sort of doctor prenatal help and could find some records for that. And if she's been here ever since, then the question comes down to the school requirement and Jim's suggestion that they go to ESL or enroll in a GED program.
Agreed.
Great. So there is here an opportunity. Collect your records and also getting registered in an accredited school. There is a comment here about the two attorneys. The attorneys did an outstanding job. Thank you to both of them, and we need us now. It would be nice to form a group to help people gather all the documents for DACA and maybe help with the translation like we did a few years ago. That would help them and the attorneys to expedite the submission of the cases to USCIS. Do you think that's a good idea? It will help the attorneys to expedite their cases?
Well, I'm going to go in. I'm going to fantail that with the next question. Pregunta cuánto cobra normalmente para llevar un caso de DACA. Look, I'm not going on a public panel to discuss my fees, and word will get out on the street faster than I can say Donald Trump is gone. Okay, everybody will know my fees because everybody talks. So the word will get out. And I think John would probably share that sentiment. We just don't discuss fees. Every case also is different. Okay. But as I look at organizing these cases, my fees are going to be higher. And I'll just tell you straight up, they're going to be higher than they were in 2012 when it started, and significantly higher because two things: the cost of living has gone up. And the other thing is we're covering a greater expanse of time in getting documents. And as I said, I went through a DACA consultation this afternoon, and I was going through it with a client. It's just going to be a significant more amount of work because you're talking presence June 15th, 2007, presence June 15th, 2012. We've already discussed how that kind of plays out, but you're looking at years and years of documents. Okay, so I don't know how to really respond to Don Carlos as to whether that's something that we can have a collaborative type endeavor where there's kind of a shortcutting of the effort by having kind of outsourcing the the obtaining of the documents. I just would need to think that through, but I will say that this will be a much more challenging set of DACA applications than it was, say, back in 2012 going forward.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions? We have 4 minutes left. If anybody has any pressing questions, this is the time. Otherwise, we are gonna thank Jim and John. Thank you so very much for giving your time so generously. We took the liberty of posting your contact information if anybody wants a consultation or wanna retain your services. We posted the information, and you both speak Spanish or have people that speak Spanish in your offices. So language is not going to be an issue. And in all honesty, they are really one of the most friendly, the most decent people that we've always recommend clients, and they've been amazing with their services. You never deceive anyone, on the contrary. So thank you so much, Jim and John. You have given us a lot of information, but also some hope. We will see what happens really soon. And probably we'll invite you again as the immigration situation changes in our nation. So thank you again. And if you have any words of wisdom that you want to leave us all with, this is your chance.
Thank you, Liz. We really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about this. We feel passionate about this opportunity. We haven't had something like this pretty much during the entire administration, the Trump administration. So it's pretty exciting for us to really jump out here and be able to get people moving, get action going in this direction.
Yeah, thank you for having us on here. Honestly, Luce, earlier in the day when I saw this was an hour and a half panel, I'm like, why didn't you make it an hour? And it felt like it went by in 5 minutes. I did not see the time go by. It's been enjoyable. It was nice to be able to catch up with John earlier in the day. So this caused us to have a good conversation as well. I'm more optimistic than I have been in a long time, but I say it's a cautious optimism. I don't want people to become complacent about anything. We have gone through one of the strongest tests in the last 4 years in my lifetime. I'm 57 years old now. I've never seen anything like this. So we need organizations like Unidos Now. We need good people out there like Don Carlos as well, who's working with the community. We need just to be together and work together. So I just want to wish everybody the happiest of holidays. We are in a very difficult time, but we have a lot to be thankful for as well.
Thank you so much, Jim. And yes, we are really fortunate that we have great people. I want to thank my Unidos Now team, Lisbeth and Cynthia and Lucero, who provided the simultaneous interpretation. I want to thank both of you, Jim and John, and the parents who took the time to ask their questions, to go through the webinar. And they are already asking more information in the future. So we will have to have more gatherings again. Happy holidays to everyone. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you do. And good night, everyone. And thank you for attending the webinar.
Bye.